Chris, far forward.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Let's forget the arguments about the merits of charter schools or not. That has already been well fleshed out within this debate. But let's look at the issue that this bill actually looks at. And the question I want to ask both the ACT Party and the National Party is, what is wrong with sunlight? What is wrong with sunlight? Why isn't it that these two parties don't want that torch shined on those charter schools which they set up over a cup of tea during the 2011 election, Mr Speaker? And I haven't had, I don't think I've heard, a decent answer. Ms Alyssa Lee, in her contribution to this bill, said that there already is accountability, that the minister, that charter schools are accountable to a minister, and also that there is some accountability around an oversight board. But Melissa Lee forgets the ultimate accountability that we have in this parliament, and that is, Mr Speaker, the public. It's the public that put us here. It's the public that votes governments in. Governments make decisions whether they establish charter schools. They are the ones that are, in their budgets, putting money towards funding charter schools. And yet, charter schools seem to be an exemption with the ACT Party and the National Party around the scrutiny, not of the minister, not of an oversight group, but it's the New Zealand public who don't have the ability to have a look into those organisations where they do with nearly any other government entity or government-funded entity, because the OIA and the Ombudsman Act do not apply to this piece of legislation. And we want to know why. Why doesn't the ACT Party, that wants every dollar that this government spends to be held, for it to be held accountable for, it doesn't want, if you follow the logic of ACT, they don't want any government taxpayer money spent. So why doesn't it want to have the scrutiny of the Official Information Act and the Ombudsman Act applied to charter schools? Organisations that the ACT Party, I think they were still more of a party than one at that stage, set up in their little sweetheart deal in the 2011 election. I'm not sure if that level of detail was discussed when John Banks and John Key had that cup of tea. I don't recall it in the teapot tapes. They said other things during that negotiation, and whether or not this level of scrutiny around charter schools was mentioned in that discussion, I don't know. From memory, Mr Speaker, I don't recall it being part of the transcript. But why doesn't the ACT Party, that says that we should have open and honest government, want to have open and honest governance and insight and that sunlight when it comes to charter schools? I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery to me why someone like Mr Seymour, who talks about his liberal values, who talks about making sure we have accountability when government money is spent, doesn't want to have this accountability for charter schools. It's a mystery, because this goes against what I believe Mr Seymour's ideological bent is. And I'm not questioning, he's entitled to his beliefs, but in this case, he can't, in a big way and in a fundamental way, he's going against those beliefs by saying, well, there is government expenditure here, but in this case, we won't have any public scrutiny. Well, on this side of the House, having an organisation like a charter school that does get taxpayer money to operate does need more scrutiny than a minister that has helped set it up, an oversight board which may not have the ability to look at everything, and it does need the scrutiny of those people who put us here. The people who trusted us and trusted those guys on that side of the room to be in charge of the purse strings, to spend the money that they go out and work hard every day to earn, and they give this House to entrust. I sound like David Seymour, but why isn't it that Mr Seymour doesn't want any of those schools which his government and his party set up to have the accountability of the Official Information Act? That is a rather large question that Mr Seymour has failed to answer during this debate. He's failed to answer it during this whole debate around charter schools, and it is his Achilles heel when it comes to charter schools.